Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Well, guys, Bitcoin saw another aggressive push to the downside overnight, down to 81,000 US dollars, which is an actual level of interest for me. I still don't know if this will be the bottom or just a bit of an obvious bounce level at this point. I personally think it'll be a short-lived bounce myself, but I would be very happy to be wrong about that. But so far, guys, we've had this nasty 6-week downtrend on the 4-hour chart, and today is no different. We have set another lower low, confirming that we have a new lower high on the trend. And guys, I mean, even though we're in this downtrend, the price action has actually been very beautiful as far as traders because levels are being respected when they should be. But I mean, either way, it is nice to see some signs of life from the bulls. But guys, I've been so vocal about this downtrend and warning about resistance every time to avoid FOMO, which I know has saved a lot of people from getting wrecked. So if that's you, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And if you are sick of being completely blindsided by this market, and you want to see more examples of how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, some of my trade setup ideas, just my overall thoughts on the market and so on, do yourselves a favor, get into my Telegram. Actually, before scanning that code, you guys, my partners at BloFin, first of all, here's a couple of setups that I had mentioned, just a little bit of analysis, warning about structure and so on. But guys, my partners at BloFin are currently giving my followers this sign-up deal. This is for new people who want to try a no KYC exchange where I'm doing all of my trading. And guys, they are currently giving you guys, my followers, a $300 position to try out, basically. And if you sign up to BloFin using my affiliate link, you will also gain access to my free Telegram channel where I am sharing a whole bunch of my ideas and theories, basically. So with that, I want to hop into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like I said, on the 4-hour, we do unfortunately have this lower low. So even if we get a very nice bounce, it is still so early to be celebrating anything about this. In my opinion, we got a bounce off of a very obvious buy level, which I have been showing in my streams recently, and that is this purple pocket here. Now, I don't actually consider this a valid STUBER fib, but it is potential support nonetheless. So to see the 886 get respected like this, yeah, it's nice to see that we are seeing support levels act as support. But to be honest, I mean, the fact that this is a weekly level, it's just so obvious to me that we would have got some sort of a bounce there. But will it actually stick or not and hold that support is really the million-dollar question, right? At this point, I personally believe that structure has been absolutely devastated on Bitcoin and right on schedule of the 4-year cycle. There's just so many things lining up. We lost horizontal support here of the micro trend. We lost diagonal support. On lower time frames, we have all sorts of signals on a bunch of indicators and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, either way, nice to see that we never just cut through this support like a hot knife through butter. We actually got some sort of a reaction. But if we get some sort of a bounce now, as far as a macro time frame goes, first of all, let me explain why this isn't a STUBER fib here for me. Again, yes, it is a 786, 886 support zone, but it's not an actual STUBER fib for me. And my reasoning for that is because generally on a trend, if I was trading this on the 5-minute, for example, you guys, basically, I would be looking at the micro trend first. And if that fails, I go for the macro trend of whatever chart I'm looking at. Now, the thing is, the micro trend was right here because this was micro analyzing, right? We had this high, we had a higher high. This was our confirmed higher low. The fact that we lost that then makes me consider, well, where did this trend begin on the weekly chart, right? If that was my micro swing, well, unfortunately, the macro swing is where this market cycle started, right? And guys, just to kind of put things into perspective, and I know a lot of people might think that's a little ridiculous, but if this were a 5-minute chart and we had this type of structure, I would not consider this a valid STUBER fib pull because we don't have market structure backing that up, right? The fact that we already lost that higher high, higher high, higher low, the fact that we lost that higher low on the trend means that we no longer have this as our confirmed higher low on the trend, right? That can change if we do something like, let's say, even on shorter time frames, like the 4 hour, for example. If we got some sort of a lower low and then break the lower high, then at that point we can revisit the idea that we have a new, smaller, valid Stuber fib setup at that point. But the fact that we lost that higher low trend, where did this trend begin? Again, on a macro scale, from the cycle lows, basically. So that Stuber fib is actually around $40,000. I am not saying we have to go to that level, but I'm saying that it's at least a possibility. And anybody who's been in this market for more than one entire cycle, you know that this market loves to surprise people, and it does things that you think are unimaginable. I mean, when we had our big liquidation event with altcoins, I see you guys mentioning it in the chat there. Altcoins got absolutely smashed basically to nothing when we had that big liquidation event. And a lot of people never would have thought that possible either. Right. So it's just something to be on the radar at this point, that anything is possible. If we get some sort of a bounce here, we would have a valid Stuber from the bearish side of things, right? Because as I mentioned, we lost that microstructure. So if this were a 5-minute chart, for example, I would be basically looking for a bounce to the 786, 886, or even to the swing fail territory. But as far as Stubers, up to the 786, 886, and then carrying on the trend basically, because at that point we at least have structure favoring that. Whereas from a fib pull from this level, we do not have structure backing up this fib pull, the bullish one, as an actual Stuber fib. So I just really wanted to clear that up, because I know a lot of people have been pointing this out as one. And again, yes, it's potential support. It is just not a valid Stuber setup. So, your probability might be dropping from about 75% to about 50%, right? So it's just a little more risky is all. Looking at things on the regular chart rather than the logarithmic chart, it looks very similar, right? We still have that loss of horizontal support, loss of diagonal support, and we have tested the 886. So very much the same. The only difference here would be that if we were going to get a bounce and retest that old support as new resistance of that diagonal trend line, that value would basically change a lot, right? Because on this chart, it would be closer to 100,000, whereas on this chart, you're looking closer to 110,000. So depending which one we're going with, but I mean, it would make a lot of sense. I mean, even though this, like I said, it's not a valid Stuber fib pull, but if we were looking for the same type of a range play as one, that 100K level with also the retest of this SR flip here, also lines up with the 0.5 fib very nicely there. So a lot of confluence kind of targeting that. So in my opinion, if we get some sort of a bounce, I would definitely be watching this old support line potentially flipping into resistance. As I mentioned on the 4-hour, since we have this lower low, I now have a new fib pull, right? Just like I've been pointing out basically every video, every day to you guys recently, is that basically as we set lower lows, we confirm our lower high. We now have another lower low, which means we have a new confirmed lower high. And that lower high is currently sitting at about 93.2 thousand US dollars. And also notice, guys, as far as confluence from an indicator, we have the MDX trend master on the 4-hour here. I've been very vocal about this from about 110K, but we have the lower trending sell signals. And since we got that lower one and respecting it at about 110K, we have just been respecting the shit out of that resistance. And the fact that right now it would actually line up very well with my price action resistance, the 786, 886 Stuber fib resistance, right? So it's nice to have that little bit of confluence there. So just understand that if we do see a nice bounce, it's going to be very hard to fight FOMO, because especially if you're on social media and stuff and seeing that everyone has such ridiculous targets in this market, just understand that people will get very vocal and tell you how bullish we are right at resistance, because that is basic human emotions. That's why people FOMO into those levels. Just like on the downside, we're starting to see this pump because most likely what I'm going to check in a second, the retail long short ratio, most likely we saw retail start giving up on their longs and start shorting. And that's when we start pumping to the upside. So with that being said, let's check it out here on the daily chart. we currently, yeah, well, exactly, right? We look down here and notice that the shorts started building. So again, this indicator is so fun to watch because you just see where your average retail trader basically FOMOs in at all the wrong times, right? So on the daily chart, that's kind of what we're going at right now. As I mentioned yesterday, we actually ended up having about a 80% long ratio. And guys, the last time that we had that, basically the only two other times that I can find on the chart where we had the retail longs above 80 was the two peaks, both of them, both peaks from last bull market highs. Those are the only times where we have been above 80, and we hit 80 yesterday. So I mean, do with that information as you will. Obviously, at some point they have to reverse, and we're going to see shorts start building, right? When they finally give up, basically when retail finally gives up on their long positions and starts FOMOing into short positions right into support. That's just very typical behavior, basically. So let's hop over to the 1 hour just to get a more clear view of the more recent price action. And same thing, you can see the same thing basically, right? Yesterday, basically as we ended up topping out and hitting our resistance levels, right? Let's just look at this, right? This was our low. This was our lower low. Let's pull a fib from our lower high and notice where we end up running into resistance. We end up testing the 786, 886 absolutely perfectly. And look what happens when we end up hitting that level. That's where retail longs start to form again, and retail starts longing right into that resistance. And as these longs start to climb, we see the price just dropping off a cliff, basically. So yeah, not too surprised to see that. Basically, as long as retail traders are willing to get wrecked and trying to catch the knife the whole way down on this very obvious downtrend, the longer that market makers are going to be able to push it to the downside and grab that liquidity. I was mentioning earlier this morning, I actually ended up taking a bit of a long, it was not me being bullish by any means. It was more of an insurance play to protect my shorts, basically. But I even mentioned that, we did have this little bit of a warning. We saw weakness come into the trend. We lost this very micro higher low on the 5-minute, pulling a fib from our top to our new lows there. And notice where we end up just facing resistance, right? We end up getting rejected in our resistance zone there. Took a bit of a scalp there. And right now, I have less confidence in the second setup here. However, resistance is resistance until it's broken. And so far, we are still respecting it at this point. So even the fact that we're bouncing off such an important level, a big weekly support level, but we're still seeing these signs of weakness on the shorter time frames is a little bit concerning to me, you guys, quite honestly. One thing that I do like, I will bring this up on the 5-minute here. Let's bring up the MDX Trendmaster indicator. Is something that caught my eye just before starting this stream, is that we do technically have higher trending sell signals and buy signals at this point. So there is a potential uptrend forming here. It is potential that we get that bounce, but like I said, I'm just having a hard time remaining bullish. So I took my profits on my short and a very small profit, basically, just because I didn't have much confidence in that position. But yeah, it's absolutely possible that we push to the upside, right? But if we do, I really don't have FOMO about it, because like I said, I really think that best case scenario, I see us bouncing up towards our 4-hour resistance, which basically starts around 90.4 thousand US dollars and basically runs up to about $95.2 thousand. Even with that I would actually be surprised to get all the way up there. That would be basically my swing fail zone. The fact that the MDX Trendmaster lines up right in my STUBER fib pocket, I'd be more so looking for resistance between 90.4 up to about 91.9 thousand, call it 92,000. But really there is a little more wiggle room to the upside on something like that. But yeah, guys, unfortunately, even with this little bounce, it's great. Like I said, great to see some signs of life, but there's no reason to be celebrating yet, in my opinion, because the bulls have so much work to do at this point. Looking at some altcoins as well, guys, just like in yesterday's stream. Ethereum, for example, same thing, right? We have a significantly lower low on the 4-hour, which means we have a new confirmed lower high, which is currently sitting at around 3065 approximately. And once again, we have that MDX trend master coming down with resistance inside that STUBER fib pocket again. Solana, very much so the same thing, right? We have that, we have our lower high, pulling our fib from, or sorry, lower low, pulling our fib from the high there. And I had pointed out in yesterday's stream, actually, I had mixed feelings about Solana yesterday, honestly. I never took a trade on it or anything. But it was looking to me like even though we broke the lower high that was on the trend, we never invalidated the 115. So we never did invalidate the swing fail setup. We got that and just sent us to new lows, right? So again, the bulls really should have used that opportunity of breaking the lower high, the micro lower high on the 4-hour trend. They should have seized that opportunity and pushed to the upside. The fact that they just sent us to new lower lows, that's a big concern to me. Bring up the trend master. I assume it's very similar to Ethereum. Yeah. So this one's actually a little bit lower, but same thing. We're just seeing the MDX trend master showing resistance up ahead if we do get that bounce towards that STUBER fib. Aster not looking so bad. I had actually pointed out this setup on yesterday's stream. Basically, for one, the trend master, although we dropped the purple line, we were still holding above this blue dotted line here for the invalidation, basically. But on top of that, I was looking at this market structure as here's our high, higher high, confirmed higher low. And basically, yeah, I said it's valid unless we end up dropping below $1.09. And we ended up holding inside that swing fail pocket there. So far so good on Aster. I still have 40% of my position running from absolutely nailing the lows there. So I want to hang on to that position if I can. The rest may get stopped out at break even. That's fine if it ends up happening, whatever. I've paid myself a little bit on the way. Let me know in the chat how you guys are all doing, how you're surviving this volatility. Hopefully you're thriving. Hopefully some things I've been saying you've been taking serious, because guys, we have been all over this trend for even since before shorting 125K with you guys, right? Just being absolutely all over this trend and just trading it for what it is. No BS, no fundamentals, no announcements, nothing like that. Really just looking at market structure for what it is and trying to be the voice of reason in this market. So if you do appreciate that about these live streams, you guys, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And thank you so much for joining me again, you guys. I love seeing you guys here. So many familiar faces are here day in, day out. I hope you guys are absolutely crushing it. Let me catch up on the chat here a little bit. Think the cross leverage wipeout eliminated all chances of an alt season. Honestly, I actually kind of feel the opposite about that, because a liquidation event can spark the next cycle, or the next part of the cycle, I guess. Much like I've been pointing out with this liquidations indicator on Bitcoin, and why I don't think we've bottomed yet, because we never got an actual liquidation event. Whereas with COVID, we did with Bitcoin, right? We tested that liquidation level, we got that big liquidation event, and then we were able to push higher. So I actually feel different about altcoins. Don't get me wrong, if Bitcoin's dumping to the downside, altcoins are most likely getting shit kicked as well. However, when Bitcoin finds its footing and gets some sort of healthy bounce, that's where I expect altcoins to actually move a lot more aggressively. So we're going to have to keep our eyes on that. Anything is possible. Either way, it's very dangerous right now. I mean, everyone's been expecting this market cycle to be so different, especially with altcoins and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that went the opposite way. This cycle is significantly different, but not necessarily for the better, right? So that's where I don't know if we are for sure going to get a massive altcoin cycle or season this cycle, just because everything's been so different, right? I mean, and the last two cycles, you could basically buy anything and just hold it and you would do well. Whereas this cycle, there is tens of millions of different shit coins out there. And unfortunately, there's not enough money out there to pump absolutely everything to the moon, right? So unfortunately, things are a little bit different. So maybe altcoins don't get their finale run for the end of the cycle. we're going to have to see what happens. But if this cycle acts like any previous market cycle, I would still expect altcoins to go for some sort of finale run. But obviously, we're going to see, because the market maker does not give a shit about my feelings or my opinions. But yeah, how are you all doing? Let me know in the chat. Hope you guys are absolutely crushing it. Still looking for a 10K daily down wick. I mean, what was that today? Today's candle was actually quite yesterday's candle, or no, today's candle. I don't think it was 10K, but it was about 6 or 7K. Quite a serious drop that we had overnight. And guys, my phone started blowing up. I've been awake since about 3 a.m. because my phone alerts started going off telling me that Bitcoin was nuking. So I have been in the charts ever since, pretty much. When Stu is concerned, you should be too. I mean, and the thing is, guys, eventually I'm going to be wrong, right? Eventually this trend is going to reverse, but the trend is your friend until the end. I would way rather be in my position right now where I've been calling out resistance every time we get that bounce back to resistance and playing the downtrend, rather than being one of those people who is trying to catch the knife and losing the same trade 20 or 30 times trying to get into a long position. Whether that's just being desperate trying to catch a reversal or trying to nail an exact bottom so that you have a nice screenshot for the ego and stuff like that. I would just so much rather take the, looking for that trend, right? Rather than looking for that desperate reversal scalp, I would rather look for the continuation swings at this point. And so far for the last month or two, I mean, shorts have just been absolutely crushing it in this market. So bears have been in total control. And until we break this 4-hour downtrend, which at this point we need to break above at least 93.2 thousand US dollars, call it 93.3, we need to break at least that level before I consider any possibilities of a recovery. And guys, actually last night, even in my Telegram, I don't think I have a screenshot of this at this point, but I was mentioning that basically when we were trading down at these levels, I had warned that even on the 5-minute, the MDX Trendmaster, we had a lower buy signal and we had a much lower sell signal. So I said, basically the bulls need to reclaim 88,230 US dollars to invalidate that sell signal. And they were not able to do it, right? We just absolutely nuked from there. So beautiful, beautiful call. That's where it pays to wait, right? It pays to have patience and waiting for those signs that the downtrend could be reversing. Because even looking at the 4-hour, guys, if you're trying to catch the knife and desperate to get in longs from down here, understand that if it's going to be an sustainable rally, if we break that lower high on the trend, it's very likely we get that Stuber retest and basically get the same entry anyways, just with a little more confidence and a little more certainty. At least at that point, there is structure backing up that opinion, right? That theory. At least there's something showing some bullish momentum at that point. Whereas right now, a lot of people are saying, oh, the bottom's in because, hey, we've gone up for a few hours. Yay, let's all celebrate and say we're going to new all-time highs. There is literally nothing in the charts backing that up. The only thing that I can give a little bit of credit to is this potential support zone. But at this point, like even the fact that we dropped back into this purple box, it's just not looking excessively strong compared to what I would expect out of a weekly level. So there's just some serious concerns in my opinion. Does consolidation at these levels help for argument of a recovery? Honestly, I feel the opposite. Sorry to say, but if we would basically consolidate sideways after losing that uptrend, let's just go back to the previous market cycle. Actually, let's go off the log chart. Look what happened back here, right? Let's just kind of compare what has happened here is when we lost that diagonal support. And guys, the market sentiment, my personal emotions, the emotions on social media, everything feels so similar to what we had back here where nobody was willing to consider that, hey, maybe this is actually bear market time. People will say that it's bear market time as they short into support way too late. but they will very quickly change that opinion as soon as we get some sort of a bounce and start FOMOing onto the long side of things again. Whereas I am keeping a level head about this, and my structure is broke. If we get some sort of a bounce, I am more so interested in shorting rips rather than trying to long the dips. But what we have in structure right here compared to what we had last cycle, which again feels very familiar to me, losing horizontal, losing diagonal, is look what happened here. Let's actually zoom out to the weekly chart just to make it the same. And notice what happened is we lost that diagonal support level and we traded sideways. We consolidated sideways for about a month, and then that bear flag played out, right? So unfortunately, if we consolidate sideways after losing that level, and basically as long as we stay above, or rather below, this diagonal trend line and respect that old support as new resistance, as long as we're below that, I just don't feel good about this market. And like I said, even if we bounce, unfortunately, we have resistance up ahead because we broke the uptrend, and we would have potential STUBER resistance ahead of us if we do get that serious bounce. Brian, good to see you here, my friend. Gravy Train, good to always see you here. Cheers, cheers. Accidentally set a TP on a Solana short from 143.25 at the 4-hour swing fail. It was supposed to be left as a runner. Ended up hitting in the morning. Well, you know what? Profit is profit, right? So not necessarily the end of the world, but I know what you mean. It hurts when you're planning on having a running position, and now all of a sudden you lose that nice, easy feeling of not needing to find a new position. And having a running position can really help your emotions, because then you're not desperate to find something new and making silly mistakes and that sort of thing. So, anyways, my friends, I think that's about all I really wanted to go over today. Understand, guys, actually one more warning is that recently, for about the last month or so, I've been pointing out that basically every Saturday we have been slowing down on volatility. Quite typically on Friday, Saturday, we will even maybe trade upwards slowly towards our 4-hour resistance level and just kind of hold that resistance and trade sideways for a day, day and a half. And then Sunday, when we get closer to the weekly candle close, we see that volatility kick in and we see that continuation of the trend. So if we end up trading to the upside tomorrow, but we just end up consolidating basically between 92 and 90,000 US dollars, and we just trade sideways under resistance like that, I would be very concerned about what's happening Sunday evening. So something to watch out for there. But again, my friends, thank you so much for being here with me once again. I think that's about all I wanted to go over. One last time, if you appreciated these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And for those of you interested in learning more examples and seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, how I pull Fibonacci's, how I look at market structure, all that sort of good stuff, my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor, get in my Telegram channel by scanning the QR code on the BloFin poster right in front of you here. If you are a new member, like I said, BloFin is currently giving new members basically an airdrop for a free position to try out basically on their exchange. And that would also get you into my free Telegram channel. So if that is something that interests you, do yourselves a favor, scan that QR code there. That should give you the new promo. But yeah, with that, I think I am out, my friends. Stay safe out there. Try your hardest to keep a level head. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. And yeah, just you guys, as I always say, trade charts, not tweets. Fundamentals, although they do matter and, kind of declare where the price is going. If the charts don't back up that theory, then those fundamentals don't matter. If the fundamentals do matter, you will see the charts back up that theory and we will start trending in that direction. But as it stands right now, unfortunately, we still have that nasty downtrend that we need to break before getting too bullish at this point. So with that, my friends, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.